welcome back, footy fans, to another episode of Donnie's Disposals. I am your host, Coach Donnie Hess here, back with another AFL round review. Ladies and gentlemen, round six has come. It has gone, and boy, were we given some fantastic football over this round six. And I will tell you this, ladies and gentlemen, this was not planned. But man, did I have a perfect time to have this gentleman joining me this week from the Further North podcast. We have Josh back on the show again. Josh, great to see you, sir. How good is it to be a Kangas supporter going so far this season?
Football can be fun sometimes, and that's what I'm learning this year. Is this what you get to feel most weeks, mate? I mean, because it feels pretty good. So, a perfect week for me to come on a podcast. I've done my fair share of doom and gloom. Finally, I get some opportunity to celebrate a little bit more.
Well, I will tell you this. I will tell you this. I may be a Swan supporter, but there's always a little part of me, as I think I've told you before, that North is kind of my second team. They were the last team that were fighting for my loyalty when it came to my supporters. So there's always a little part of me. There's always that little part of my heart that's a little bit blue and white. Plus, again, there's some fantastic former Swans that are on this North team. They have been fun to watch. I have been incredibly happy to see some success, to see North Nation up and about. I mean, I know the women's team has given a lot of happiness, and now to see the men giving that same happiness, absolutely fantastic. But we'll save the North love for a little bit later in the podcast when we talk about them. But let's hop right into it, sir. Round six, man, some cracking matches, some absolute rippers. Jump right into it. Round six, your thoughts as a whole.
A very interesting round of football. We had some very close matches. We had some blowouts as well. I think we're learning. Round six is sort of this point of the season when you start to learn where teams are at. Is it just the first few weeks were bad form, or is this going to continue for the rest of the round? So, I mean, as we dive through games more individually, we can go into it more. But I think we're starting to roughly piece together where teams are at. You're really starting to learn: is this just a patch of form, or is this what the team's going to be? So, look, blowouts, close games, some expected, some not. But once again, like you said, another very crazy round of football.
Yeah, well, the easiest way to say it is this: the trend was you either win by 40 or more, or you win by less than two goals. Like that
Mm.
literally is the spread of this particular season. Just nine games and a little bit of everything. Let's jump right into it. We will start off Thursday night football at the MCG. The old rivals Collingwood, Carlton, Lockhorns, and the Pies get a 5 point win, 88-83. But I will say this, there had to be a few heart palpitations in Magpies Nation because the Blues, who have struggled this year, really took it up to the Pies for this. And for the longest time, I thought may even pip the Pies at the post.
Yeah, wow. I mean, poor Carlton fans, man. And we're part of that. And I apologize on behalf of the North Melbourne Football Club for Good Friday to the Carlton fans. But man, the Blues just can't catch a break at the moment. And it must just be absolutely ripping their hearts out to give them that crumb of hope and really make them think it's okay and just the same trend over and over again. And look, I guess I'm not here to diagnose exactly what's going on with Carlton, but chemistry and belief and execution, all those things are going on for them. But I don't know if this game says more about the Pies or the Blues. The Pies haven't looked fantastic this year, even though they seem to be scraping by and getting their wins still. But the Blues, man, I've been through my fair share of heartbreak, and I feel sorry for them at the moment. It must have been after all those weeks in a row being up and then, you know, falling behind in the last minutes of games and things like that. Shout out to all my Blues fans out there.
Yeah, it's been a trend. It's been a trend this year that has been worrying for them because there's almost become this PTSD a little bit of getting up 20 points because then there's almost this dread that, oh my God, wins the fade. And for the longest time watching this game, I thought, okay, they're not going to have this fade. They still played strong into the third quarter. They get to the fourth quarter, and then the fade starts to happen, and you could just see the uh-oh thought process just run all over the Carlton players' heads. It was almost like not again. And again, this is a Pies team that there's been questions, there's been injuries. Pendlebury's been hurt. Sidebottom was out this game. DeGoey's out because of a concussion. A lot of the really great players for this Collingwood side. So it's you got to give a little bit of credit to this Pies team for having the gumption to be able to pull this one off. But there was this, you could tell this PTSD of, oh God, not again. And it's worrying to me that they get to 10 minutes to the fourth quarter and it's almost like their high performance is just not there. It's like they they not trained for a four-quarter game. It's almost like they've trained till quarter time or three-quarter time. So that's very frustrating. Even for non-Blues fans, like, why is this happening? Why is a football club with some good talent on its list unable to run out games? Now, I will do this really quickly for those of you that listen to the podcast. Again, many of you know I do not like to talk about non-football related stuff. I will go quickly, Josh. I don't want to talk about it a ton. There's the huge controversy with Elijah Hollins. And again, I want to send this out. I hope Elijah is okay. I hope that everything that the football club is telling us that this mental issue is what happened. I don't want to assume anything. I am one of those. I will wait until we fully know, and we'll probably never know. And that's the hard part for me. So just quick, Josh, I know this is frustrating because is the club telling us 100% the truth? I will be honest, I do not think so. I think there's always going to be a kernel of this situation we will never know about. Do I think there is some truth in what they're telling us? I hope so. I really do. Because if not, that's worrying what this club missed. Because everybody in the stands, the announcers on the radio call, the announcers on the TV call could all tell something was wrong and nothing was really done about it.
I mean, that's the part of it that probably doesn't sit well with a lot of people, and that's absolutely fair enough. I mean, my 2 cents on this is Elijah's okay. It seems, he's been seen and training, and I'm sure they've had he's had discourse with Carlton and that sort of stuff. If Elijah's okay, if Carlton have talked to him and understood the problem more, personally, I don't think it needs to be a public or a media type situation. I know it will be because that's how football, especially in the modern era, works. But I don't know if everyone's okay and they put things in place to make sure they're more vigilant or things don't happen in the future, then I think everyone should just be like, okay, and we all move on. Obviously, that's not going to be the case. The media is going to try and crucify anyone they possibly can in this circumstance. But personally, I don't think it's much of an issue that the public really needs to dive into too much. It's Elijah's business. He's got his own struggles, and we've known of that previously. So for me, it's between Elijah and the football club. I don't really think people should get involved or dig as deep as they do. I think we should all move on and let them handle it. But obviously, we know that will not be the case. So yeah, I hope Elijah is okay, and he seems to be after the game. Carlton need to be better at that sort of stuff and move forward with it. And then I think let's just leave it there. But let's get ready for the whirlwind through the week.
Yeah, unfortunately, and I don't want to kick it, but it's also the fact that they're in Victoria too, and all that footy media is there. I
It's
think
also
that
because of the season they're having as well. It
oh yeah,
adds to the whirlwind. And you touched on a point before, like why is this football club not holding on to their leads and just seeming like they can always fall at the last quarter? And it's a mental game at this point, and that's how
hmm
sports are. I'm an Arsenal fan in the Premier League, and they're choking it up at the moment and probably about to drop back to second in the Prem. And it's all a mental battle. The ability's there. The ability's been there all year, but it's a mental game at this point, and that's what I feel like it is for Carlton as well, where it's happened so many times, and it's not just this season. The last season as well, they dropped a lot of late leads, and I remember even the previous season against GWS in a game, they were up most of the game and dropped it once again. So they've been through a lot, and leadership is important. And I don't know if they have the right veterans. And I also think they've got a couple of young players to give them that spark, but that
hmm
middle pack that isn't like Cripps, Wiedering, and that's probably about it. They're good to average AFL players, and that's about it. And there's who do you lean on? Because Cripps looks a bit bored to me, and I don't even blame him, to be honest. I mean, he's fought for this football club for years and years, and now he just doesn't look himself, maybe last year and this year. So who do you turn to in those times
Mhm.
at the Carlton Football Club when you've just had repeatedly been punched in the face? And it must be, it's a mental battle at this point, and they don't seem capable of beating it.
Yeah, and that's the frustrating too because they do have such passionate fans and like you look back to their run where they got all the way to the preliminary final recently and just how electric Blues Nation was as they
Mm.
go on this magnificent run getting all the way to a preliminary final and for the most part pushing eventual premiers Brisbane to the wire. So I'm I'm with you, and you look at it, and their list has been absolutely just ripped to shreds. It's like their recruiting has not been good. All the recruits that they brought in this last season, there was none under the age of 25, so they're not getting like developmental players that you can develop into the future. It's mostly people that are in their prime now, and is their prime the best of the best?
No, it's not.
No, it's not. And you hate being that rude, but it's the truth. Like, and I think
Yeah.
that's the frustrating part. It is, and then you kind of, you almost kind of had that they had that ability to go after Charlie Curnow. Well, unfortunately, that's seeming to turn a little bit. So it's this really weird dichotomy for the Blues Nation. Again, I love them to death. I know so many of them. They're great people, and you want them to have success. But right now, it's just the football club is not doing it. And I worry that Michael Voss's days are numbered. How low the number is really going to be up to the club, and I worry about that because I think
Mm.
I have a hard time seeing him get past round 10 if this keeps up. But
Yeah.
I don't see how they can't dig themselves out of it. All they're going to do is put
No,
themselves further in the hole. That's the hard
I
part.
don't disagree with you. Like, I think one thing about Carlton, and I can only liken it to North, I guess, a little bit just because I'm a fan, but
Hmm.
we obviously dove hard into the rebuild. And we were very vocal and open that it's going to take time and there's going to be a big rebuild and it's going to be some lean years. Carlton, being a bigger football club, uh, have failed to really decide a path. They did make a prelim a few years ago, but I don't know if that. I never felt personally that side was up to scratch to contend for anything. I think they really scraped past the Swans and the D's in those two finals to get to the prelim, and Brisbane did beat them pretty comprehensively. It felt that way anyway, and
Hmm.
I just the list is at a stage where on paper it's kind of old, and they need to commit to something. Personally, I think they need to go out there and find a coach that's been at a good program, who hasn't coached a different team before, a young guy who can relate to the group with fresh ideas. Look what the D's have done with Stephen King.
Hmm.
You know, they need a guy like that. Look what Sam Mitchell. Sam Mitchell's a slight different case, but a young guy comes in with a new system and lit a fire under them. That's what Carlton need. Carlton, as a board as well, need to come out and say to their fans, we're going to redo this and we're going to do it right, because these
Hmm.
little mini rebuilds that they're failing to do because they don't want to lose the membership money and all the hype, the Blues were so big and all that sort of stuff. If you keep floating in that mediocre zone, you're just going to be irrelevant, to be honest.
Hmm.
And just because you've got a lot of members doesn't mean you're a good football club. So they need to commit to the build, and trust me, it'll be hard, and the fans won't like that at the start. But once you get through it, like I'm feeling right now, being quite excited, the Blues need that. They need a
Hmm.
complete cultural shift, and that starts with a coach who brings a different culture and identity and gets people to buy in.
Hmm.
You know, you
Hmm.
touched on the free agency losses. Good clubs off the field don't lose three of their best players to, well, not in the Kerno case, Sydney. I understand why he went there, but the other two went to St Kilda, and St Kilda have been notoriously mediocre for a long time. And
Hmm.
to get them out of Carlton, obviously it's the money, but do you reckon Carlton is a fun, good, happy environment there for the last few years? Like, I don't think it would be. So they need new culture. They need a complete reset, and they need to dig in, because through North's rebuild, we haven't lost your LDUs, your Larkies, your Jerrys, your Zerhas. We signed Shees, McKercher past Tassie. All this sort of stuff has happened, and now it feels more worth it. Carlton are at a different phase where they didn't drop down like we did, but they need a cultural reset, and that starts with the coach. Don't sack Voss until you know you've got the guy. Don't bring in an interim and then figure it out. That's even worse for the culture. Keep him there. I don't think there's a point sacking him personally if you don't have the next coach come in straight away who you know is going to be there for 5 years. But it's Carlton, so I don't know what's going to happen, mate.
It's gonna be interesting. Like I said, I have many a good Blues fan, and I've reached out giving him virtual hugs because it's so frustrating seeing this club and some of and again I know it's names on paper, but I mean some of the incredible players. I mean I how many people have heard the line that Crippa deserves a premiership,
Yeah,
and at the pace he's going, unless he goes back to Fremantle very soon, I don't know if that's going to be achieved. Which it really is it's disappointing for such a great player, but I'm also one of those. I've said many times, just because you're a great player doesn't guarantee that you're going to win a premiership. I mean, there's tons of the league is riddled with great players that did not ever touch a premiership cup. So it happens, trust me. So I'm not going to kick the Blues anymore. Again, congratulations to the Pies. They get a win. No steel side bottom. No Jordan De Goey.
Darcy Moore as well.
I'm still not sold on them. I
Mm,
still think they're still if Nick Dacos isn't absolutely his self, which for the most part he is. I'm not that confident in a Collingwood side that can barely beat a Carlton side that has struggled this year. So I'm not sure if this is the banner win that some people are trying to kind of mark this out. So I don't want to stay on that game anymore. Not that I'm moving to Friday night football and getting any more confident, unless I mean, half of this thing I didn't mind, but it was an interesting Friday night. So we'll start off with the first one down at GMHBA Stadium as carnage galore as the Cats not only smashed the Doggies by 75, 131-56, but Sam Darcy goes down with, unfortunately, what I'm pretty sure is a torn ACL.
yeah,
Liberatore goes out with a concussion injury. Lobb may have a hamstring issue. I mean, at the pace it's going, the Bulldogs are going to be held together with any adhesive that the Western Bulldogs can find because they are absolutely devastated. And the Cats had showed zero to no mercy. I mean, Jeremy Cameron with a bag of 10.
yeah, outrageous. I mean, that guy gets better with age, realistically, and he's one of those guys that I look at and I'm like, he doesn't look like a footballer, but he's better than everybody. It's almost
Mhm.
like a Nikola Jokic situation in the NBA where you're like, that guy doesn't look like apart from being tall, he doesn't look like a basketballer, but he's better than everybody on the planet at it. So, yeah, I mean, it's funny with the Dogs. They started so well in the first 3 or 4 weeks. We're really looking at them as a premiership contender
Mhm.
because they were really pounding some decent teams, but the injuries are gonna destroy them, I think. And look, maybe they come good second half of the year when they get a few of these guys back. Obviously, Darcy doing his ACL means he's done for the year, but they've still got a good enough team. I don't think Darcy's been outstanding this year anyway. I think
Mhm.
he's got
I
to put
agree.
on a little bit of size before he starts to really become his own, even though I think his talent is absolutely sky high. They've got a good enough unit to still be a very good team. They just got to get these guys on the park. But the Dogs also, the Cats beating them by so much, it makes me think the Dogs are very reliant on a particular group of, 8 to 10 players on their list, and the rest can't maybe pick up the slack because a 75-point loss. Yes, the injuries were bad, but you would hope if they are a contender, even for top four, they would be able to still have the system there because I think system over players is more important. You can see that with a lot of teams. Hawthorn do that well. Collingwood even do that well. We pointed before they didn't have a lot of players and still were able to play the way they like to play. So I don't know if this game says more about the Dogs or the Cats. The Cats to me are just always a team that are going to be in the top four. I'll tip them top four every year until they don't make it. But it's a
Mhm.
bit boring because the Cats, I don't really enjoy watching the Cats, to be honest. They just keep winning and it's just kind of boring to me. So I'll focus more in on the Dogs here. And I think, yeah, I think when their players are all there, they'll be a very good side. But if you're
Mhm.
reliant on that group of players and can't keep the system going when all those players go down, I'm not sure you're a top four / premiership contender. So we'll see how it plays out when they get some of them back. But the Cats, yeah, great. I was hoping they'd drop off, and like
Mhm.
we all have been for about 15 years, and it just doesn't happen.
Yeah, no, for me, this is it says kind of 50-50 about both. Like I take a little bit of the Cats are ruthless and down to GMHBA, it almost kind of it's the worst possible place to lose some really good players because the ground is going to neutralize everything. It's going to bring everything closer. So that doesn't shock me. The piece that I think is showing to be much more glaring that I don't think people really think about is Tim English. The fact
Yeah,
that notice that this losing that these losses have come since English has went down, and which is really weird to say because Geelong is notorious for having no real established ruck. They have kind of ruck-ish guys. I mean, Blitzovs is not a ruck. Reece Stanley is not really a ruck. Sam DeConey is not really a ruck. I mean, and then you have the big lump in Edwards, who I think has been decent, but it's still he's so young and so green that like it's really weird that a team with no established ruck absolutely dominates a team that, if for the most part, if you look on paper, Ed Richards, Bontempelli, Bailey Dale, Frazier, Liberatore before he goes out with a concussion, so many incredible, really good midfielders in that group, and they get absolutely smashed through the center. Like for me, it's pointing out that the piece to resistance when it comes to their success has been Tim English, has not been the midfielders. Because you noticed they lose Ed Richards, but Timmy English really is the glaring miss here. So I'm with you. I don't think this says everything about the dogs or everything about the cats. I think it's right down the center. I think it tells us this that the dogs, I agree with you. They need Bont, English, Richards, Dale, and a few to be their best, but they're not being lifted by their bottom eight. They're
yeah,
not. And the Cats are you're seeing that. Lawson Humphreys has himself a fantastic game. You're seeing guys O'Sheen Mullen showing that the especially this week when we have the recognition of holy shnikes. Now I'm totally losing it. The Jimmy Steins. Like
oh yeah,
how I
Jimmy.
mean
Yeah,
how incredible for an Irish for I mean the tagger extraordinaire and O'Sheen Mullen to be able to tag Ed Richards out of that game and everything like that. So like this is a Cats team that they just get it done when they need to. They get the pieces. I mean, Tanner Bruin completely misses a year of football. He's actually playing fantastic. Patrick Dangerfield comes back from an extended stay on the absence after all of the all of the injury issues from the state of origin game. He comes back and Dangerfield looks absolutely incredible. Again, the Cats just they do, pardon my French, they do shit right, and they do shit right far better than anybody else in the competition. Again, I'm with you. As much as I hate that they're that good, I respect the crap out of them because
oh
they
yeah,
just do it right. And I got to give them that because it is not easy to maintain that level of excellence for as long as they have. I mean, think about it. They haven't had a top 10 pick in like 15 years. That's how
mm,
good they are.
yeah. They did
So
trade for the eighth pick a few years ago though, but that was
but
through
they
that was
didn't
through a
get
trade.
it. What I
Yes, yeah,
mean
yeah,
by that is they have not finished
yeah,
in the
yeah.
bottom 10 to the point where they've gotten a top 10 pick that they haven't moved for. I mean, have they traded for guys that have been top 10 picks? Absolutely. They've done it. I mean, Jeremy Cameron is a huge one. But again, I look at it and go, you gotta, as much as you hate it, being a club, being a supporter of another club, you gotta give them their round of applause, their plaudits, their flowers, whatever theme you want to say.
Mm,
They do it right, and they've done it right over decades. That you have to just tip your cap to them and say, "Well done, good on
mm,
you guys, good on you." So
I
we'll
agree.
move to the other game, which I think was even more interesting. Not only because it was my team, the Swans, in the Sydney Derby. I didn't realize as they discussed this, as they were talking about this game, is the fact that the two teams call the rivalry completely different. Sydney wants to call it the Sydney Derby. GWS wants to call it the Battle of the Bridge, which for me have so many friends in Sydney. They go, "What bridge are they battling over?" Because there is no bridge between the two clubs. So it's kind of a funny little. I thought it was interesting that they discussed it so much on the broadcast. Swans get a win by 40, by 41, 100 to 66. But I think the thing that most people are talking about when it comes to this game is the hour lightning delay and then the
Yeah.
drama about not knowing how the points were going to be just because there was a time when they were talking this game might not have restarted. And I remember online, I'm watching Jimmy Ralph as they're going back and forth with him because first it was, well, if they don't restart it, they may have to split the points because they haven't played over half the game. And then, like 20 minutes later, they come back and they go, oh, well, we talked with somebody with the AFL and the Swans talked with somebody at the AFL, and they said that because they got to halftime, that technically the game is halfway over, so they can consider this a full game. So if they don't restart, then the Swans get the points. So there was this all sorts of just insaneness. Like I was talking with people on the grounds, like I had a conversation during halftime, and they were like, Donnie, what's going on besides the fact that we're not playing because there's lightning? Like, what's going on? Because there wasn't a lot of communication about it. Even the players didn't fully know why they weren't going back on the ground. This was just an insane game. The Swans come back out in the second half, take a 19-point deficit, kind of run it up to 30, and kind of stay there the rest of the game. This was one of those, again, the Swans look really good. The Giants, I feel for them because they cannot stay healthy. Just so many injuries. They have not been the team that they have been all year because there's always been at least two or three pieces from their starting lineup out. I know Tom Green goes down with the ACL at the start of the year. Josh Kelly has not played the entire season. Sam Taylor went down during state league. That's three good key cogs for this GWS team. So as a Swans fan, as great as it is to get the 4 points, there is part of me that is like, we didn't beat the best GWS team. You beat a team that is kind of being held together a little bit.
You can only beat who's in front of you, though. I
Yep, no,
I I
100%.
never take it that way. I mean, once again likening it to North a bit, but there's still a lot of people saying that we haven't beaten anybody, so what we've done doesn't matter. And I think that's ridiculous because we've always been at the bottom and now we're beating those teams. And it's the same regardless of where you are on the ladder. You know, it's not your fault that there were, injuries
Hmm.
to a lot of the Giants. You can only play as in front of you. I think you would have beaten them anyway, to be honest, mate. I think the Swans are, for me, arguably premiership favourites at the moment. I think they're an incredible team. I like you for North. I've always got a bit of a soft spot for the Swans. I don't really have a reason why. I just like the organisation. I think they've always produced good players and they play a good brand of football. I rate Isaac Heaney very highly, and I don't know. I just like what they're about. So the Swans just did what they had to do. The Giants haven't been on completely this year because of injury, but like we can't just blame injury as well. Once again, like we pointed out before, the system should still remain. If you are a good club and you're a finals club, the system should remain, and you should be able to call the next man up, and they should be able to at least be plugged in to a respectable degree. And they haven't really looked joined from the back to the forward half of the ground this year. So, they're lacking a little bit of pace in the midfield, I think. But they're still a good team, and it's going to be an interesting test against North next week or this week coming. Sorry, so I don't know exactly where they're at, and I don't know a lot of the timeline of their injuries. But right now, you would have beat them injuries or not, mate. I have no doubt about that. And then you can add Goulden on top of that later in the season. I think the Swans they should be making a grand final this year at this stage.
I'm gonna touch wood. I'm gonna hope you're right, sir. I really, really do. The problem is I just hope we don't run into the same issue we've had the last three times we made a grand final. I will throw that hoodoo
True.
out there. I I've been impressed with Justin McInerney. I knew he was good. I knew he was a great player, but he has stepped into Errol Goulden's role as that winger central midfielder that just runs corridor and just is absolutely electric. He's been incredible this year. I mean, the fact that I'm seeing footy media talking about Justin McInerney is insane to me because I know Errol Goulden is good. I know Chad Warner has had his moments. I know Isaac Heaney is in a 3 year run of form that most Swans fan did not expect because he's never really shown that. 2024 hits, he goes bonkers. And then 2025, a little bit down compared, but the previous year was so good, it's hard to beat it. And then this year, he's almost back to 2024 form, which is kind of scary to think about. And then to do this without Errol Goulden, to do it without Braden Campbell, who's still got a shin injury, like the issue the Swans have is that they've been relatively healthy, but the injuries are weird ones. Like, I mean, I know Lewis Melican's out with a back injury. Joel Hamling has stepped in. Like, as you said, guys should be able to step in, next man up. Joel Hamling steps in for oh my God, Lewis Melican, and has played really, really well. He's had a few clanger moments, but I think every single player has at least one clanger in their life. So I kind of take that with a grain of salt. But Nick Blakey, I mean, how good has he been? How good was he in this game? I mean, at one point, I know the announcers were talking about him potentially getting to 1K when it comes to meters gained. He was at like 400 halfway through the first quarter. It was absolutely, yeah, it was absolutely insane. They're like, I think he ended the first quarter with like 536 meters gained in just the first quarter alone and ended with like 875. It was some insanely high number. He didn't get to it. And then I think he also had the running bounce. At one time he had the running bounce. He was like a, most for a quarter. He had like 12 in a quarter because he was going on runs. And you know the lizard when he gets going sometimes you don't always know where he's going, but you know he's going to do something electric. So it's kind of crazy. But no, I agree with you. This Giants team, they've flabbergasted me a lot because they're not always consistent with the output. This year, they've just not gotten that tsunami going as much as they have years before. Is it because there are a few soldiers down? Maybe, but I don't fully 100% think so. I think something's just not clicking this year. And I hope they figure it out. I really do, because I think they have too much talent on that list to not be a finals team. So we'll have to
Mm.
see. They're a frustrating one, the other side of Sydney. Again, we may have a rivalry, but I do respect what the Giants have done. I love what Kingsley's doing over there. I think it's absolutely fantastic. Let's move on to another absolute cracker as the Gold Coast get the scare of a lifetime at People's First Stadium as the Bombers just fall short to the Suns 119, 110. I mean, if you love offense, you're going to love this game as both teams put up over 110 points and the Bombers just fall the tiniest bit short. But I'm going to ask you, Josh, does this say more that are we overrating Gold Coast? Or has Essendon found the elixir to a better side than they were those first four rounds when we were talking? There was talk of maybe Essendon not even getting a win. And now they push a team that some people was talking about in premiership contendership to within 9 points on their home patch.
Mm. Well, I think personally, it says little bit more about the Gold Coast. I'm not Essendon, credit to them, are in better form, but still not getting over the line. But all that being said, the the Gold Coast obviously losing to the Demons as well a few weeks ago. They're shaky, and Petrarca went out. He was back for this game though, but is he going to be that important of a piece that's the difference of game that it sort of makes if he's in or out? But I don't know. This Gold Coast side is very young as well. We can't forget that.
Hmm.
And it is still the Gold Coast Suns, who haven't been a fantastic organization the whole time. So I think personally, it says a bit more about the Suns maybe not quite being at the level. Have they got the cattle to do that? Absolutely, they do. But I think a lot of teams do as well. I mean, I was going to say Brisbane, but then they lost on the weekend too. But it's, I think it says a little bit more about the Gold Coast. I don't, I'm not buying into the Essendon stock after two close losses. I'll judge them more on when they play teams in the bottom 6 to 8, and if they can get the wins. That's more important than competing with better teams on the ladder. It doesn't matter if you can compete with the Gold Coast, if then you turn around and you lose to, St Kilda, or you lose to, I know they've played Port, but like to Port or something like that. You know what I mean? So I think the test and the narrative about the Bombers will be told next time they play an easier team. I think it says more about the Gold Coast right now.
Hmm. I'm with you. There's still some. Maybe it's still the list, but I think Dema's words are coming back to haunt him a little bit because he comes in and he's like 75 or whatever percentage it was on my premiership team is here. I'm like, I think you're high on that
Maybe.
number because there's still There's still some pieces that are still around from the years where Gold Coast was great. They're great at the start of the year and then absolutely fade into oblivion in the second half of the year. And this is where I'm gonna go New South Wales. I'm gonna go interstate fan for me. So bear with me here. This is not an attack on Victorian fans. I'm not trying to, but this is just this is how I see it. This is where the overvaluation of the academy players because they're top 10 picks, that this is where I think it kind of makes you look a little foolish because yes, these players are talented, but does it mean that they are ready for the big stage? Are they going to be those players that push you over to win a premiership? We don't know. Like, are Jed Walter and Ethan Reed and Leo Lombard, are these guys going to be the guys that push them over a premiership? Well, right now, we don't know. They haven't done it yet. They made a finals last year, but who's the guy that really helped them win the game? A guy that was on their first list from their first season when they were terrible. I mean,
Mm,
in Swallow. Now he's gone. So I'm hesitant to jump on. I'm hesitant to jump on this. Well, Dim is there and all this talent, and they did it. Prove it to me. Prove
yeah.
it to me. Be a top four side the entire season because this result is not a top four side result. This is a five to ninth place. I mean, with the wild card. Stay with me. This is a fifth to ninth place side the way they're playing because is this Bomber side progressing? I think so. I think something has clicked in this Bomber side. They're terrifying when they play like this. They can beat a lot of the teams around where they should be if they play this type of football. But I've also seen the terrible Essendon earlier in the season. So I want consistency on are we going to get good Essendon where they're competitive and they beat teams that they should beat and are competitive with teams they maybe we shouldn't be? I hope so. I really do because it's great for the competition. But I've seen ugly Essendon. I really hope that that one doesn't rear its head again. I really don't because this is better for the competition to have an Essendon that's going to at least have a crack. They're going to give it their best and we'll see what happens. I hope
Mm,
so. I really, really do. But I'm still not fully sold on this as on this Gold Coast side. I still say there's just an inexperience there's a lack of experience when it comes to those hardened days of late in the year rounds 20 to 24 and then finals that this side just does not they don't have the battle scars per se that some of these clubs do like a Geelong like a Sydney like a Collingwood they don't have those. It's
mm,
going to take years to get that built up. So let's let's pump the brakes a little bit on Gold Coast here. I think this is a little bit of a hey,
mm.
let's let's come back to reality a little bit.
But the important thing is, though, are they going to, and I feel the same about a few interstate teams. Fremantle is one of these. Are you going to win a final in Melbourne when you need to?
Yep, yep.
And that is
100%
always
valid.
the question it's going to come down to. And people can like it or not, but that's just what you're going to have to do.
Yep.
So can those clubs and the Gold Coast specifically here win when it comes down to that circumstance? And look, there's plenty of season left. Their best has looked fantastic, but their worst has looked a lot lower than what their best has
Yep.
dished up. So September will tell. They're going to be in the finals. I'm not really worried about that personally, but
With the 10
you know,
sides making team, yeah, definitely for sure.
yeah,
If
yeah.
it
I
was
mean,
still if it was still the 8,
really,
I
so
will
I think
raise
they'll
I
be
will
top
raise
six. I'm not too.
I hope so, but like I said, it's we just don't know if they're going to be at their best every round and if they lose some games they like nobody expected them to lose to Melbourne when that happens.
Yeah,
Melbourne's fine if except for that little hiccup against Essendon for the most part, Melbourne has been pretty solid this year. So
yeah.
Melbourne's right in there in that talk. So I wouldn't fully guarantee that if we didn't have the wild card this year that they would make finals. I there's still some questions about them that I agree I agree like there's still something I'm not fully confident in them.
Mm,
I think I agree with you. I think they make finals, not just because of the 10. I think they're fifth to eighth personally. That's where I think they're going to roughly, I think they're going to fall in that elimination in the one of those two elimination finals because top four right now, it's hard not to see Fremantle, Hawthorn, Sydney, all 5-1, all looking really good, all with impressive wins, all with wins against tougher teams in the competition. it's hard to see. There's only one more spot in the four right now, unless one of those three falls apart. Again, this is footy; it happens. But there's only one more spot left in the top four. So
Mm.
if you go off the if you go off trends, so I don't know. It'll definitely see. I'm fascinated. Speaking of one of those three teams that I just talked about, the Hawthorn Hawks get an impressive 3-point win over Port Adelaide, 89-86. But this was a game of runs. Like this was insane. Hawthorn starts off great. Port Adelaide crawls back. Hawthorn goes back on another just absolutely insane. Hawthorn escape with the win. As the Port Adelaide side, frustrating because you look at the talent that's on this list and it's a little bit like GWS. They're just not clicking the way I kind of thought they could at the start of the year when I thought this is a Port Adelaide team definitely has a chance to take Josh Carr, a first year coach, into the finals.
I mean, this game's an interesting one because the typical narrative I've heard is like the Hawks keep rolling, but then we look at the Gold Coast getting a win in kind of similar fashion. But the narrative is the Gold Coast might be fumbling, and this is I Hawthorn's been quite good this year, but I'm still not completely sold that they are the top four premiership contending uh, real deal. To be
Mhm.
honest, I think they've got holes in their team, and
Valid.
they're
Yep.
playing well, and they grind out results, and that's good. But I mean, North smash Port. Port are they're probably going to be bottom six this year, if not maybe a touch lower. I know they're going to get Rosie back at some point, but I don't really rate this Port team very highly. Even with, I mean, they didn't draft a single player last year, so there's some young players there that look okay, but not enough for me to make them feel like they've got enough talent to start moving up the ladder in the next couple of years. So I think there's going to be some lean years for them. If I was a Hawks fan, you take it and you move forward. But I don't think there's no reason for concern there
Hmm.
because, especially in Melbourne as well, I don't care. It's Marble Stadium. Now the Hawks would be like, oh, it's not the MCG. It's an oval with sticks at the end. But
Yeah.
the travel that Port had to, come over and it's a completely different environment for them. They had the lesser hand and arguably should have won the game. So there's
Hmm.
questions for Hawthorn. Take the win, move on. And they are doing very, very well this year. I'm not taking that away from them. But just like the Gold Coast, I think the same questions are on the Hawks. Maybe not to the same degree because the Hawks have looked a little bit better than the Gold Coast consistently, but there's still questions to be asked. Was it just a weird blip game that you got away with? Or is this is it showing that there are some holes in the Hawthorn team? The midfield looks okay, but I still think they need, a piece in there. And I mean, are we really banking on Will Day at this point? I don't know. Their system is very good though, and that's what gets the Hawks over the line. On paper, I don't think they're the craziest team ever, but the system and the coaching
Hmm.
give them that extra level. So there are questions about the Hawks for me, but take it, move forward, and I know they're going to make finals. They'll be top six, but if we're asking questions about the Gold Coast, I think you've got to ask similar questions about the Hawks in this round of football.
Nope, nope, 100%. I agree with that, and I would say if Hawthorne is banking on Will Day, that they're banking on a house built on sand because Will Day can't stay healthy. Like that's
No.
the issue I see with that thought process is that yes, Will Day is an incredible player, but right now he just cannot stay healthy. He'll get 5 or 6 games in, and then something breaks down, and that's frustrating for the talent level that Will Day has that I completely agree with you. Hawthorne cannot count on him right now. They have to establish something without him and then just hope he's the icing on the proverbial cake
Mm.
later on in the year when he does come back because that's scary to think about. They're a good team. You add him to this mix of guys. It's kind of a group of like Hawthorne is the weirdest thing because they're kind of
Yeah,
a group of almost no names a little bit because
they are.
Massimo D'Ambrosio is a bring in from Essendon. Cal Shadir is the unheralded youngster that's come in and played well. Marbio Chol is a cast off from Gold Coast. Gunston had his journey away up to Brisbane and has made that thing back. Nick Watson was the wizard that got his name that caused some controversy. Why are you calling him the wizard? He hasn't done anything. And now this year and a little bit of last year, he starts to show why he was so highly seen by Cal Toomey in the draft. And then Josh Battle's a cast off. Tom Barras is one of the best defenders in the competition. So it's like this is a weird it's a weird group because Jai Newcomb, one of your best players, is a mid-season draft pick. Like
Yeah.
it's a cast of characters in Hawthorne. They're almost they're almost a case of misfit toys a little bit, and you kind of like that. Like they've become likable, which is weird for Hawthorne because I think for most of us, the dynasty years that we're all like, you know what, Hawthorne.
Mm. Even with the celebrations recently and stuff as well, when they burst on the scene again, I'd say they
Mhm.
were nearly more hated then
Yeah,
because it came without success realistically. But
yeah, yeah.
I think they were more arguably hated more a couple of years ago than they were in the. You could
Hmm.
almost respect how good they were back then, but
Hmm.
when all the 17-year-olds are dancing around doing TikTok dances after goal celebrations, I think you
Yeah,
get less respect for that.
Hawkball
Yeah.
got big. Yeah, no, it's this. Like I said, it's a cast of characters. They're fun. They're entertaining to watch. Are they consistent when they're football? Not yet, which is kind of scary to think that they're winning games without being consistently good or consistently bad. They're just inconsistent. You just don't know what you're going to get each week. If they find that, and I think they eventually will, look out. It's going to be interesting, but I'm with you. I can see the doubts. I'm not fully 100% sold on them either, but we'll really have to see. It's going to be fascinating to watch that. To hold my beer moments from one South Australian club to the other as we can jump back to the Adelaide Oval as the Crows escape a scare from the Saints 103 102. Crows get the 4 points, a huge win for the Tricolors. Josh Rosselli playing fantastic. Tex Walker kicks a bag of five. How good is it? And the Saints, again, just cannot find a way to get over the hump. All those millions of dollars to Tom DeConing, to Nez Wanganeen Millera. And right now, I think honestly, I think the person they're missing the most is no longer in Saints colors, and that's Jack Steele, who's found himself a nice home over in Melbourne.
I mean, yeah, it's the Saints are an interesting one. I think they did the right thing spending the money. It's very different in Victoria. People talk about Victorian bias, and realistically, the Victorian bias is Collingwood, Hawthorn, Geelong, and it stops there. The other teams, Richmond, when they're up and about, yes, but they drop up and down a bit. But realistically, Victoria biases those three teams. If you're at the bottom of the food chain in Victoria, you have absolutely nothing to feed off at all. And the club is in that category here is St Kilda. So following a smaller club like myself, you've got to push the boat out to get these big guys to come across. Free agency, in my perspective, is a fast track way to get good players from bad clubs to good clubs. It doesn't help the lower clubs whatsoever. And I'll fight on this hill to the day I die, because if you don't think that, you don't know the system well enough. St Kilda had to push the boat out to get those players. I never thought it was going to click this early in the season. I don't think you can bring in that many good established players and just click straight away.
Hmm.
I think they'll be a decent second half of the year team. If they do get Ben King back and he actually can contribute, that'll be a massive help as well. But
I agree.
I'm not worried about the Saints just yet. I don't personally think they need to be making anything more than maybe wild card, even though they've spent the money. I think that's more of a next year thing, realistically. I know the media
Hmm.
won't take it that way. The media will be like, you spent all this money and didn't even, get
Yep,
top
yep.
six
Nope,
or
I
top
get it.
eight or whatever. Realistically, not possible. Not It's not possible, but I don't see that happening. I think next year, once they've had a year to gel, back half of the year, I think they'll improve, and then maybe the 2027 season is when the chemistry is there, because people underrate chemistry. People look on paper. How many times in this pod have we said on paper this team is this, but they're not doing that?
Hmm.
That's because chemistry, coaching, system is the most important thing in football over the players. So the Saints need to find that. Is Ross the guy? I don't know.
Hmm.
I'm not a massive Ross Lyon believer, but you know, he's been relatively successful as a coach without getting the flag. I think this team will be better in the second half of the year. And then next year might be the more scary time. So I'm not going to go too hard on them, even though I know the press will.
Yep. No, I 100% agree. Sometimes bringing in that many, it takes a while for the group to gel. So I'm 100% with you. And I think that I agree with you. Like I can see what they mean. And I think it's also the reason why their heads have been so snappy at interstate clubs and everything about all that. I still think there's a little bit of assumptions on both sides when it comes to the argument that I don't think they're all 100% wrong, and I don't think they're all 100% right. They're more closer to the center when it comes to to the in between the two, I think is more of the situation. But like for me though, here's I kind of like I think teams are figuring out how to kind of neutralize Naz a little bit, and Naz is not
Mm.
handling it real well. Like he's struggling to kind of get his own without having to go out of his way to do it. And then I also kind of agree with what Ross Lyon said in an interview. I think some of his teammates aren't helping Naz get free either. There's some blocks to help him get loose that they're not setting. They're not doing some things. So I'm hoping they get it figured out because Naz is an incredibly good player, especially ball in hand, one of the best kicks in the competition. But I mean, St. Kilda's got to realize the problem is you paid a guy $2 million. He's going to be a target. He's going to be somebody the teams are going to try to neutralize. And there have been games he has been. And that's something he didn't experience last year because they hadn't put that full situation into it. So it's going to be fun. Can Ross find a way to get Naz free? That'll be the biggest question on that. DeConning, I think, is hurt. The hip pointer, I think,
Mm.
is when he's so that's not helping. The thing though is it did release Rowan Marshall in this. Rowan Marshall was much more himself, being the ruck. Again, this is where I've raised my hand and said, I don't think DeConning was a great signing. I don't think he was at all because he's not what they needed. They had Rowan Marshall. You had an established ruck. Why do you bring in a guy that honestly is only good when he plays just ruck? He's not a great forward. He doesn't play back. He's not a Luke Jackson where he can go through the midfield and be that hybrid midfield ruck type of player that can kind of play anything. DeConning is kind of a ruck, and that's it. He's really not anything good at else. But Rowan Marshall is the same way. He's a good ruck, but he's not a good forward. So it's almost I'm getting screaming situations of Brody Grundy, Max gone.
I was about to point out that as well, where we've seen the two ruck thing not work, and especially with the new ruck rules, I think it even more means that you can't play two of those guys. I understand why the Saints did it because if the money's there and he's willing to come, a club like St Kilda has to pull the trigger.
No, I get
But
it.
I also agree with you that was it the best fit? I
No.
don't think it was, but that's the tough part of the league where these bottom Victoria clubs have to just go after guys
Yeah.
for the sake of it. Otherwise, they're going to stay floating in mediocrity, and that system doesn't allow you to build a cohesive list a lot of the time unless you build through the draft and take 8 to 10 years to actually build. So
Mhm.
on Naz as well, I think you got to put him back to half back. I think you put him back there and let him run at
100%.
the football. He's better when he's running with the game in front of him. And if he is getting targeted in the midfield, there's nothing wrong with putting him back to half back. We've seen it with Shizu a lot as well. Not this year.
Mhm.
Shizu's really stepped up this year and become just a midfielder. But, Shizu went in the midfield a couple of years ago, got targeted more, started getting tagged, and North moved him back to half back a little bit last year and half forward and tried him in some different spots. I think that's what's got to happen with Naz because you're right, paying him $2 million and then him not having the output. Even though, like I've said, I think the Saints had to make sure they keep these players, you need to get production for your dollar as well. So I don't think there'd be any problem putting him back to halfback, letting him create off there. They're conceding a lot through the midfield as well. I think a steal would have been great in the midfield for them. So maybe you could move Naz back and get that contested game going a bit more for St Kilda and get it out to guys like Naz running past, similar to what Colby can do for North. So I think they chuck him back there for a little bit. Maybe if you've got to rest a Coney, just do it now. Get his body right for the back half of the year, and make sure you're humming then because that's more important. I think so. They need to find some balance. And does De Koning go back potentially? His brother plays in the back line. You've seen Rory Lobb go back and be quite good. Maybe
Mhm.
that's something you can mix up as well. I'm no coaching extraordinaire, and I know that sounds crazy, to put De Koning in the back line, but put Naz back there and put De Koning there. His brother does it well. Surely he's got the same attributes. I think, St Kilda's De Koning is a better player. So maybe it's time to move the magnets around before you keep losing games, St Kilda, because you're going to put yourselves under a lot of pressure. Even though I don't think they should be, the media will put them under pressure. And then, like we chatted with Carlton, it's a mental game, and that's not a club that I believe is mentally strong enough to push through that. So, time to move some magnets around for the Saints, I reckon.
Yep. No, I completely agree. I mean, and the fact that DeConning's brother is playing really well off fullback and being
Yeah,
that backman, let him have a crack just to get some confidence because maybe you don't know when you may unlock that intercepting defender. And but I'm 100% with you. Is if you look at the way the AFL is nowadays, you need that great kick, speedy halfback flanker, half center halfback type of player, and Naz fits it perfectly. And sometimes they're trying to shoehorn him into the midfield. I mean, at least shift him from the halfback flanker to the wing just to keep him in space because
give
I
him some
don't think
space. Yeah,
I don't think he's that contested. I don't think he's the
no,
contested beast. I mean, Nick Dacos is the weird one where he's the one of those he can actually do all three and be good at all three. He
it's
surprisingly
very rare that a player can do that though. Like if we're
exactly
trying to put him in Dacos, conversations, he's not quite there yet, but
no,
Dacos is
not
an
yet.
absolute freak though. And if that's the standard he has to be, then geez, good luck.
Yeah, no, I 100%. And it's the reason why I'm so happy that Sydney has done what they have done with Nick Blakey. They've never tried to shift him into the midfield. They'll occasionally shift him up to the wing and shift like a Jai Sarong or a taller defender back if they need to. But I appreciate the people that are not taking that incredibly dangerous piece, that halfback flanker with great speed and a good kick and keeping them there because it's so dangerous in the competition. If you look at it, some of the best teams have that guy, Carl Amon, and James Sicily from Hawthorn, Nick Blakey at Sydney, Naz when he does play this at St Kilda, Josh Dacos now at Collingwood, the Jordan Clarks of Fremantle. A lot of these teams that are super successful, they have that great kicking, usually fast. Dane Zorko is one of the few that I think kind of defies that. The good kicking halfback flanker that they can really open up the game by their ability by foot. So, and you're noticing most of the great teams, they have that one player that can really do that. And they're difficult to tag because they can shift around a little bit. So it's really kind of fun. So I will enjoy this part because normally when I talk with Josh, we're coming off a not so great performance with North. But this time, I don't know how I pulled this off. I don't know how I did this. For once, the footy gods have smiled down upon my co-host here as North Melbourne get a smashing 75-point win. The grin on his face as I finish that sentence is incredible. I will let you do this. Fly your blue and white flag, sir. North Melbourne, how good is it getting a big win over the Richmond Tigers?
It's been a long time since we had a big win like that, and this season I've loved what we're putting on the park. I mean, just to talk about us overall, maybe for the season, like we've been doing that sort of play consistently. Now, there's different level of opposition, and have we played the best teams in the league? No, but we have been a bottom three side for the last 6 years. So I don't want to hear anyone else tell me that you haven't played anyone yet because these are all sides we were losing to last year. We look so cohesive. Our defense is fantastic. I didn't ever expect this group, the same group of defenders as last year, albeit a couple of new players in Parker and Zerha, which was crazy last week going down there. The defense has had a complete makeover, and that's really what's doing it. The competitiveness, our midfield's ability to run two ways this year. LDU has gone to another level. His two-way running has been fantastic. We're the number two pressure side in the comp at the moment. I was hoping for a jump and I was expecting a jump because we got a four-time premiership coach with a bunch of first-round picks and guys who are clearly bought in because they've already signed. It was always going to work eventually, even though I know the wider footy world doubted that because we're a smaller club, but it's really coming together. And yes, Richmond had injuries. I understand that. They're in awful form. They look worse than last year. And I think their rebuild is going to take a lot longer than a lot of the fans maybe were hoping. But it's been a long time that since North has crushed a team, and it's 75 points. People are acting like some people I've chatted to are like, oh, Richmond aren't good, and we didn't beat them by 20 points and just get the job done. We crushed them, absolutely destroyed it. We put the foot on the throat. They had 2 goals 12 at halftime. That's how good our defending was. And yeah, we gave up some inside 50s and they missed, but something we're doing really well this year is not giving them shots directly in front of goal. We're pushing teams wide to get their shots on goal. And a lot of the ones directly in front were sort of 50 meters or beyond esque. And we're pushing teams wide into spots they don't love to kick goals from. So it's clicking at North. The forward line's dangerous. Cooper Trembath is a revelation. Zerha's the best defender in the league, which I don't really mean, but hey, I'm going to say it because I love my football club. And I don't know, man. It's just so much fun to see. We deserve this after so many years of waiting and waiting and waiting and knowing like this is the one thing that we're doing that maybe the Carltons and the Essendons haven't is we committed to this rebuild and we're seeing it through. We've been patient, but God, these young guys look good. So I'm very, very excited.
Oh, I 100% understand your elation. I think it's incredible to see this, and I think we waxed lyrical a little bit pre-Mike because Luke Parker has been a revelation at the halfback spot. He's found that place, and I know I came on your podcast. I remember saying I said I think he's a huge loss for the Swans, but an incredibly good pickup for the culture at North. And Jack Darling has been a relatively good surprise with that culture because you've seen him. There have been some secondary efforts this season by Jack Darling that
Oh yeah.
let's just be honest, at West Coast we just didn't see as much. So he's buying in when you have veterans like Luke Parker, like Jack Darling, like Caleb Daniel buying in to this group. That is such a good thing. So I'm loving it for North again. It's Richmond. Has Richmond been great this year? Absolutely not. But damn it, you know what? We got to take it when we did. And you guys absolutely looked incredible in this game. Totally took Richmond out of everything that they wanted to do and absolutely ruthless when it came to turnover. It looks absolutely incredible. Harry Sheasel again showing why he is who he is. It's absolutely so much fun. Georgie Wardlaw, please stay healthy, sir. Please stay healthy because
Oh please.
it is so much fun to watch that bowling ball go through the midfield. He's so much fun to
Yeah.
watch.
How good.
And to see Jai Simpkin and Dylan Stevens kind of both take those wing positions, make them their own. I'm absolutely loving what North is doing. It's going to be so much fun. You terrify me. I when the Swans play North a little bit later on in the year,
Oh,
you guys terrify me because there's some pieces that I'm interested to see how teams handle it. It's going to be fun. Like I said, I wish North nothing but the best. It's so much fun to see this club that has been down for so long have some success, to see the up and about that is their fan base. It is so cool. Like I said, I was joking with Josh earlier this year online when I messaged him, I'm like, how good does it feel for this? And it's just so great to see the excitement amongst North fans. It is awesome, absolutely awesome. So we'll jump
mm.
to it. The trend continues, as we said, as Melbourne get a huge win over the Brisbane Lions at the MCG, 104-102. And I'm going to go here, Josh. We kind of said it earlier. Is this, do we take more of Melbourne getting the win over a premiership favorite, two-time premier defending premiers, or do we take more of what's wrong with Brisbane? Because for the most part, Brisbane is healthier now than they were a few weeks ago when they had injury and they had suspension. And the D's find a way to get it done.
Yeah, they did. I mean, I think the D's might be really the team of the round. I'm confused a little bit. Beating the Gold Coast shocked everyone. Losing to
Yep.
Essendon shocked everybody, and now beating Brisbane shocked everybody. So I don't really understand what to make of the D's. They've been
I
impressive.
agree.
I tipped them bottom six. It might have been bottom four personally because I didn't look at the roster and go, "There's much there at all." But there's players like Jack Stewart found a new lease of life. Mychek is playing his role there, and some of these young guys are coming on. But it's really Stephen King and his ideology that he's bringing to this club. So I think it definitely says more about the D's. The Lions, you can absolutely put them in the same bracket we were talking about before with like your Gold Coast and your Hawthorns, where you got to ask some questions. And I think that is valid. They've probably got a few more credits in the bank, being two-time premiers, starting 0-4 a couple of years ago and then still winning the flag. So maybe that's why I'm not going to jump on them like those other two teams we just mentioned. But yeah, there's slight hesitation with Brisbane to feel like they're as powerful as they were. We ran them super close the week before as well. She's had a shot with 10 minutes to go, would have put us 4 points down. And the Brisbane didn't play bad in that game. We played really, really well and matched their level until the last 10 minutes. So there's questions for Brisbane, but when you've won two flags in a row, I think you get a little bit more leeway. So I think the D's are the bigger story out of this.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. It's like I said, they've found a way to shock us for 3 rounds consecutive. Hopefully they don't shock us again, but we'll see. The D's find a way. I think you're gonna see this because they are a younger side. I know they've got veterans. I know they've got Max Gone, one of the best rucks in the entire competition. They've got Jake Lever. They've got some experienced heads, Tommy McDonald. But for the most part, this is a young group. This is a group that is relatively inexperienced compared to what they were even just 2 seasons ago. So I think we're going to see this a little bit. They're going to Jekyll and Hyde us a little bit when it comes to it. But it seems like Coach King is finding a way to get them up and about for these good sides. Did he maybe take Essendon a little lightly, and that's maybe why that happened last week? We'll never know. But it is
That's a learning
fascinating.
lesson, though, isn't it, for
Oh
a
yeah,
young team?
yes,
Like,
yes, yes.
and this is what I want North to do over the next 5 weeks because we've got tough games. We've got,
Huh?
your what's next? A GWS,
GWS this week.
which
Yep.
is semi winnable for us. I think it's a 60-40 the GWS, but I think we can be in that game. But then it gets super tough against the Cats and the Swans, which I don't expect wins from, and I do expect those sides to beat us fairly easily. But how do we compete against those sides? And then we go to the Crows and the Suns as well, which might be semi winnable as well on their form and our form. That's where I'm really going to judge North Melbourne. And I think North and the D's are at a very similar spot this year. The D's have had opportunities to prove that they're at that stage already, and they've shown that. That's why I'm interested to see where North can be when we play those sort of teams too. And we played Brisbane and ran them super close, so I think we can do it. But the Essendon thing, I feel like just a blip for the D's at this point because they came back and beat a very, very good side. So credit to the D's. I've always said with a few of the other podcasting guys that we collaborate with through the network here, you know, there's a small club alliance in Victoria. There's the Dogs, the D's, the Saints, and North. And we've got to band together and try and bully every other club around us because we're the bottom of the barrel in Victoria here, and we need to stand together. So good on the D's.
Yep. Nah, it was great. Like again, the genuine joy again, seeing again Max Gone playing incredible as he was. I think Sam Draper is going to take a little bit before we start seeing him the way I think he can be. I think he was an incredibly good pickup for them. Losing Oscar McInerney, now you get an athletic rock that I think it's going to take him a little bit of time to kind of get used to being around the midfield that he was because when he was at Essendon, he kind of had to do it a little bit more because of the midfielders that he had. So it's going to be interesting to see. But this is a Brisbane side. I think in the next 10 rounds, you're going to start seeing Brisbane, which is kind of scary when it comes to competition. But I'm so happy for the D's to see them up and about. Like I said, they're getting after it. I agree with you. The youth is going to be the reasons you're going to get a yo-yo your results a little bit. So we'll have to see. Can they keep it a little? Can they stabilize it a little bit instead of being so up and down? We'll have to see on that. And we ended the round. Unfortunately, the Western Derby was far than competitive as the Fremantle Dockers get a 56-point win over the West Coast Eagles, 97-41. Impressive win. This is a West Coast Eagles team that frustrate the crap out of me because as soon as I thought that they were going to be a little bit like North, where they were going to be super competitive, we were going to have a very competitive competition since maybe Richmond and Essendon at the time. And I know they ran into the Sydney buzzsaw. And even for me, I will openly admit when that game came on the schedule, I was worried because West Coast was playing good football. They had a win. They were playing, and Sydney absolutely just went through them like a hot knife through butter. And it's almost like Sydney broke them because now some of the things that were working during the win streak, Sydney absolutely took all the positivity. This is a good Fremantle side. This is a Fremantle side that I've seen several announcers say is a dark horse premiership side because they're that team that they're not in Victoria, so we don't 100% know. Can they get, as you said earlier, can they get the win in a big final in Victoria? Will that happen? Well, if they get into a tops two side and they don't have to see the MCG until the grand final, that always helps because it's a little bit easier. Can they get it done on the biggest day in September? We'll have to see. But I'm liking Fremantle. They're playing really good football. Great to see Mason Cox out there. Again, first game in AFL level. He's been really good at waffle level. Can he step up to that? Because if so, no Sam Darcy, you've got the super lengthened, not bad forward craft of Mason Cox, and then the hybrid midfield ruck in Luke Jackson is a scary combination if they can click it. So there's a Fremantle side. I see a lot of positivity. I see a lot of good things coming out of this Dockers side. Am I 100% sold on them being in the Premiership discussion? Not 100%, because this is a team that is notoriously defensive. And are they going to let free of their offense with some of the weapons that they have? I hope so, because they're going to be fun to watch if they do.
Yeah, I've been a bit of a Fremantle skeptic
And that's
over the
nothing wrong
last
with that.
couple of years. I just don't, and it could be because they're all the way over in Fremantle, and on paper they feel a little bit like Hawthorn. When there's a lot of names that don't jump out at me and go, "That what a bunch
Yep,
of
yep, I
superstars."
get it.
I think there's more questions over the coaching. I mean, they've been a bit up and down. I don't know. I don't want to come on here and talk negative about the Dockers because they have been solid and they've been good. Have they had a big win interstate over a good team? That's probably the thing I'm missing from them. They've won a couple of interstate games this year. They were close affairs. I just I just need to. I'm not going to believe in the Dockers till they do it in the finals. I think
Hmm.
that's just my gut feel. And if that's negligence on my part, then I'll fully wear that. But you know, all I know is if that was a Melbourne team that had the Gold Coast play their first ever final, come over to your home and beat you, you would never hear the end of it. And Freo really got off that very, very lightly, with discourse. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I think I'm a bit scarred from that with Freo. They're playing well and they're getting the wins where they need to. I'm not discrediting that at all. I just don't know if I believe they'll be able to do it when the whips are cracking. I feel like they could be a side that could be out in the first week or two of finals. But what you said is correct. If they do finish high on the ladder and they get home finals, I'll believe a bit more. They're a good side. They're a very good side, and I'm not trying to play them down too much. But I've just always had this thing with Frio that I just don't know if I believe until it's done, and that's on
Mhm.
me. That's on me. If any Frio fans are out here, don't come at me. But that's on me.
You are not the only one that I've heard say that, and I
Mm.
fully 100% understand, because they have been a team that has disappointed us with results, like with how they've
When it
handled some
matters.
finals. Exactly. Um, so I 100% understand the skepticism. I'm one of those that I can see the pieces that can show that they can be that team. Have they lived up to expectations, as some would say? Not yet. Not yet. I mean, when you've got the two-headed monster of Brayshaw and Sarong, you should be winning more finals than they have in the last 5 years. Let's just plain and
I
simply.
agree. Yeah,
So I'm 100% understand your skepticism. I see the pieces that if it clicks in just the right place, they could be a scary side come finals
I
time,
agree
because they
too.
can
Yeah,
play finals football, because they have the pieces that really perform well in the finals. So it'll be if it clicks. Again, a lot of ifs there. Ifs
a lot of
can
ifs.
well, yeah, a lot of ifs there, and I fully understand it. So that is all 9 games discussed and talked about. We jump to one of my favorite parts, burning questions. And I'm interested on this, Josh, because as the North Snuffy that you are, take your North hat off for just a little bit. What's your biggest story so far from this round? Because for me, it was the up and down nature of these games, because we got some cracking games with some great scores. But Friday night was kind of a disappointment because both games were not close. And you had the controversy of 2 games on at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the fixturing was going on there, to be honest. But story of the round for me, I think it's just showing that the competition's getting more even,
Hmm.
which is good. Um, I've been a big believer the last 5 years that there is a big difference in the top and the bottom sides, and I think that's very systemic of a problem in the AFL. But you know, a lot of the sides down the bottom have got wins where, except Richmond, obviously, but everyone else has sort of had a win when they maybe shouldn't have. And I look at the top of the ladder, and other than the Swans, I don't think I see another team that is as strong, and I'm confident that we'll win that many games. And I'm not just saying this because I'm on your podcast as well. I genuinely think the Swans are probably the best team this season with one of the best players in the league to come back. You know, just looking at the top six here, I mean, geez, North's in the fifth position there, so maybe I'll put us in this category. But Fremantle, Hawthorn, Gold Coast, Geelong, North Melbourne above the Cats. I might screenshot that and send that to a few friends. But those sides, the rest of those sides in there, don't fill me with confidence they're going to win games as much as the Swans do for me. So outside of the Swans, I think anyone can beat anyone on their day or have an upset. It could be on the cards, except for the Swans. I think they're going to beat everybody, to be honest. I'm probably tipping them for the rest of the year. But I think the competition is getting more even, which I think is very, very important because obviously I've lived this world for a while being at the bottom of the ladder, but it's last year there was a lot of dead games at the end of the season. And this is why I love the wild card. And the wild card is going to be fantastic for the league. I understand why people don't like it, but I really just think that's because there's change and people don't like change. But when you really look into it, if you're 10th to 14th of the last month of the season, you're playing for something. And that's really, really important for quality of game of football. An example of that last year was St Kilda Melbourne, arguably game of the year when Naz won the game. Meant nothing, meant absolutely nothing for the season. It was a dead rubber game. Didn't affect the finals or even the bottom four race for draft picks and stuff. Didn't affect anything. And we just don't want that sort of stuff happening anymore. So I think the competition's getting a bit more even. And thank God my team is helping and contributing to that.
Yeah, well, I was giggling a little bit. I agree with you. Just looking at theirs, I almost wanted to go question without notice. Can you believe that right now you were currently in a top six spot?
Well, yeah, I mean, I can because I thought we'd be maybe not top six, but a lot of North fans predicted 4-2 to start the year. That was what I said on the podcast. I think 5-1 should have been 5-1. Losing to the Eagles has been embarrassing, even though they hit this weird 2-week patch of form and got us. Even though I don't think we played notoriously bad in that game, I think we'll get them next time. But 4-2 was always on the cards. Like I sort of chatted about before, this is the point for North now where the next 5 weeks you've got more of a test. But there's winnable games in there as well because the Suns, the Crows, and the Giants haven't looked 100%. So is our form going to carry over into those better teams? Geez, I hope so. I'm going to the Giants game next week in Canberra. I'm going to go see some friends. So if they get a win from me up there, the lid will be absolutely off. Maybe I've got to come back on next week and just lose my head for an hour or so.
Well, for it's, I respect GWS as a Swans fan. And some people are like, well, there's no built-in hatred for me just because I think a little bit sometimes the hatred is manufactured for some people. I think the players genuinely don't like each other because there is that competitive rivalry. I think sometimes they try to manufacture the rivalry. Is there some distrust amongst the fan bases? Absolutely, because there is always that part where GWS was created, Sydney was moved, but Sydney has the history. GWS is it, so it's there's a lot on that. But like for me, I look at it is for me on your side, and I'll just really quickly on that is that to see North play, I think the way some people expected 2 or 3 seasons ago, that you bring in Clarko, and again, has it been as smooth as you want it to be? Absolutely not. I mean, the whole Hawthorne racism thing and everything like that, it has not been smooth sailing at all. And I think finally some continuity in his coaching, some continuity in player development, I think is starting to kind of click. Is Clarko the master that everybody makes him off to be? I'm still not 100% sold on that. Again, I know some people are like, what are you talking? Just because you win a lot of premierships does not mean you're a great coach. Sometimes you just have the right time, right players, right situation. This is where I test a coach is can he do what he did at Hawthorne at North? If he starts to do it, then you're far more of a better coach than some people make it off to. And I know it's blasphemous for some people, but I appreciate what Clarko did at Hawthorne, but until he proves it at North, I'm always going to question him a little bit because
I think it's interesting though because I don't know. I think people's expectation of what we should have been doing under Clarkson so far is way too high.
I agree
I think they're putting
100%
pressure
agree.
on us just for the sake of it because we're an easy club to crap on, to be honest, because we're small. So I don't think people really understand how broken of a football club North Melbourne was. the buy-in and the culture that he has created over the last few years are, on top of going through what he personally went through, is incredible.
Hmm.
Signing Larky off a 71 goal All Australian season when he had offers from Sydney and Hawthorn, oh sorry,
Hmm.
Sydney and Collingwood, is outstanding. I thought Zerha was gone. He was rumored to Sydney as well, actually. LDU, what a player he's turning out to be, especially this year, and locking him long term. Shees was into 2030 something. You know, the sign of a better club as well is finding a Tom Myers who's been incredible.
Yeah.
Cooper Trembath has just turned into what a player he's turning into be. So, but this all stems from Alistair Clarkson and what he's done. On my pod, I've been so staunchly defending this guy because people's expectation. We lost one game in the preseason to the D's, and all these high level members wanted to sack the board and the president and everything. I wonder how they feel now. You know what I mean? Are they still feeling like that when we're sitting fifth on the ladder? I really, really wonder. So it takes time. This is not going to be a Hawthorn.
Yep.
You jump back up in a couple of seasons because off the field was correct. You just needed some list tweaks. This was a build culture, build belief, get draft picks. And then you got to wait 4 years for those draft picks to come on and hope they stay and hope they develop. So it's probably on the timeline that I thought this would be. Last year, I think, was a massive jump for us, and people just didn't really look and care that much, which I understand because I probably wouldn't have if I didn't follow North as well. But this year, we've just taken a leap, and yes, that's not a leap that's going to be us in the finals, I think, but we've been bottom three for 5 years, mate. Like,
Hmm.
we've taken a massive step, and all the players are 18 to 22, so we're going to take another step. And Clarkson doesn't necessarily have to be our premiership coach. It could be a Paul Roos situation where he comes in, stabilizes, makes culture, and
Hmm.
then he breeds the next generation, and maybe they get us over the line. But I think Clarkson's done a fantastic job. I don't think it's longer than what was realistic. Expected versus realism is a different thing.
Hmm.
And honestly, mate, if we're bad for a decade and we win a flag in 2032, I don't care. I don't care how long I have to wait. Does any Richmond fan go, oh, we won 3 flags, but those 30 years were bad, so they don't count or it doesn't mean as much? They don't care. Do you reckon any Richmond fan thinks about Brett Deledio anymore? Absolutely not. So, if it takes a while, mate, it takes a while. But I think we're on the right path. And are we going to win a flag? I don't know. But, I love what we're doing this year. And I'm excited, and that's what we need, and that's what other clubs who are similar spots of the ladder to us the last few years need to have. They need excitement and belief and a plan,
Hmm.
which we have, and a lot of other clubs haven't had.
Yep. No, 100%. I'm 100% with you. It's the build is the big is you have to build correctly. And I think they're doing that. And I think you're starting to see those building blocks start to click in just the right time. So we're at a perfect situation. So let's as we talked about the top of the ladder, and I know you kind of discussed it. I think I know the answer to this after how you answered it earlier, but there are 3 teams that sit atop the ladder at 5-1. Hawthorn, Sydney, Fremantle. For you, sir, who do you think has been the most impressive so far?
The Swans by a mile for me personally. Yeah, the Swans. There hasn't been too many shaky performances in there. It's still without Goulden. I think he's so good. Kerno hasn't even warmed up, and I've no doubt he will. I think Melican is a really good, solid player. I really like when he got rumored to us a few years ago. I actually really wanted him to come across. I don't think he's ever going to be one of the better defenders in the league or the top 5 defenders in the league, but he just plays his role really, really well. He's a very reliable player. So it's the Swans. It's the Swans for me. Hawthorn's probably the next one there. And then I've always got questions about Freo. So we'll see. I would still maybe pick Brisbane to finish up there, maybe be the challenger again on top of those other teams, especially like when finals comes around, if Freo are away from home, if Hawthorn don't have that midfield clicking or Day's not there being the player we know. I still have some questions, but Hawthorn's probably the second so far to the Swans, but I think the Swans comfortably.
Okay, so this is the fun part because I'll go put my coach's hat on and try to be as neutral as possible. But it's hard to argue that it's not the Swans purely because if you really look at it, the one loss that they have is against Hawthorn, and who didn't play in that game? Isaac Heaney didn't play in that game. Errol Goulden was hurt, so there's 2 huge
And it was
outs.
close too.
And Melican didn't play in that game, and
Yeah.
Melican got injured in that game. So
Yeah.
not only are you out two of your better players, but then one of your best defender, your second best defender, also goes out during that game. And I agree with you. the Charlie Curnow discussion, I think, is very frustrating for me because this is one of those that it's kind of like, as you said, with the Clarko expectations. Everybody expected Charlie Curnow to come up there and to turn into plug or lock it and kick 10 a game. That's just not going to happen. That's just not the way the league is constructed. Did I agree with some of the questioning of the efforts? Yes, I will fully agree with that because one of the things that I know that the Swans culture has always kind of bred into people is that you give effort every single time. And there's no excuse. That's just the way the club's culture has always been. The Bloods culture has always been something that I agree. It gets into players. You would think that it's not that, but it has. Like Buddy Franklin, towards the end of his career, started to get that Bloods culture to the point where even if he wasn't scoring, second efforts, extra tackles, moving with it, working with each other. That has always been something the Swans have prided themselves on. And I think you're starting to see Charlie buy into that a little bit more of these last three rounds because he may not be scoring, but he's crashing packs. He's getting second efforts to try to make tackles. And now that they're starting to play some opponents to the point where he's starting to make an impact on the scoreboard along with the second efforts. So I agree with you. I think the Swans are the most impressive purely on the fact that if you look at it, they've now, I will also say some people have pointed it out. Some of their wins have come against teams that are not at full strength. So that's another thing that we kind of have to look at it a little bit too. They're going to get the Bulldogs with no English, no Liberatore, no Lob, no Darcy.
Then the
Literally
Cats get them at that, and we don't question them for it. Do you know what I mean? Like there's narrative around each
no,
team,
100%,
so
100%.
it's not the Swans' fault that that's happening. And I think you'd beat
Yep,
them anyway, mate. And
yep,
deep down, everyone who uses that as an analogy for those games, deep down knows that the Swans would have won that anyway, and they're trying to deflect from
yep,
and
yep,
give reasons because they're scared of the Swans, mate. The Swans are the best team in the league. The Bloods culture is great. I mean, we've got our shinboner spirit, and it's a very similar thing, right? And even Luke Parker talked
100%.
about
Yep,
that going between those two clubs, and that feels back. Clarkson played for North Melbourne. He knows what that means, and other people joke about and laugh about it all they want. You're not in the club, and you don't know what that means to us. And you can see North being the second best pressure side in the league this
hmm
year, and that's what it stems from. Guys like LDU who notoriously don't run both ways are tackling, chasing,
yep,
holding the ball calls and putting their body. Dylan Stevens loves tackling, mate. I never
hmm
thought I'd see the day. He's buying in, putting his head over everything. It's fantastic. So this might be why I like the Swans as well, is because even though they've been a much more successful side than North Melbourne in recent years, culturally, I think there's a similarity there. And I think they
100%.
breed their own people very, very well. They get people to buy in, and they're fun to watch, but they're tough teams, and they're going to put their head over the ball. So this, all I know is every team's always going to play against someone that has injuries. That's going to happen to so many teams. But
100%. hmm
if the generalized narrative in the media is we want this team to fail or we want that team to be good, then it's going to swing either way. You can make a narrative for absolutely everybody. I
hmm
posted up today about the pod I dropped following the Richmond game, and the comments were, "Well, we didn't play. This player wasn't in for Richmond, so it doesn't matter." What kind of an attitude is that? I hate that attitude because you're always going to come up against someone. You've made 3 grand finals or 4 grand finals in recent years as well. So Swans have the runs on the board. You can put 5 Sam Darcys in that forward line. I think the Swans win.
Yeah, it's very interesting, but I think there's also the little bit too is that so there's some really good players that are playing for North now that have that bloods that came from that bloods culture. Dylan Stevens, as you said, and I will openly admit, was Dylan the player that he is now at Sydney, that he is at North? No, I think he's progressed. I think there's been some
Yes.
growth in his game. Luke Parker has stepped up, like I said, off that halfback line and found his niche. Jacob Costanti has been a little inconsistent, but he's had his moments, his moments. So I 100% like you see the similarities amongst it. Is it exactly the same? No, but
No.
there's a lot of similarities to it, and I think that's the reason why a Luke Parker and a Dylan Stevens can thrive at North because it's very
Toby
much a
Pink as well, I'll
similar
throw in that
culture.
category.
Yep, yep, yep.
Didn't play
Toby
for the
Pink.
Swans, but got drafted and was there. So
He was in the system, so you got to say that. No, 100% that, which I think is perfect for my last question because I like to ask a question about this, and I know we've waxed lyrical about North and Sydney. I apologize to
more
those,
North
but
chat, mate. Give it to me.
I absolutely love it. So I cannot wait for this. As the North fan that you are, as the Nuffy of the North that you are, Is the belief growing, or is there still that tiny bit of hesitation because of some disappointing seasons previously?
There's always going to be a tiny bit of hesitation. We'll prove what we are over the next 5 weeks. But regardless of that, even if we went 0-5 the next 5 weeks, I still think this season is a jump. What we've just done in the first 6 weeks is fantastic. Tick. We won 5.5 games last year. We've won 4 already in 6 rounds. We've got other teams to play later in the year that are easier as well. But how we played against Brisbane and the manner that we beat Port and we beat Richmond, absolutely crushing both of them. We can absolutely go to a Giants, a Collingwood, a St Kilda, a Demons, some of those middle clubs, even some slightly higher clubs than that if they're a little bit off. And I think we can take advantage. Now, that hasn't been proven yet, and that will happen over the next 5 weeks. But I can 100% guarantee there's more belief, there's more trust, and we've 100% jumped. How high that jump is will probably get decided over the next 5 weeks. But we're definitely better. We're not finishing bottom four anymore. And the league's not ready, mate. They're not ready for North Ball.
Yep, I cannot wait to see. I hope I truly truly hope you're right because how up and about will it be for the North fans if you're in the finals and that even if
Oh,
it's the wild card, I don't care to see
oh
the
mate.
blue and white scarves come out to see the excitement in the North fan base. Cannot wait. I know later on in the season I have Marnie from Kenga TV and I can tell she is just as up and about as all of that. Cannot wait to talk with her later on in the year. That's going to be fun. Always love talking with Marnie, such a passionate, incredibly awesome Roos
She
fan.
makes me look like a casual, mate. I tell you what.
Well, I love her work. I may be a Swans fan, but I try to support other podcasters. So I know even if they're just their club, because it's great to be able to have such a supportive system in that. And she's incredible. I love what you do at further north. It is absolutely fantastic. It's absolutely great. We'll jump to it. We'll jump to my part of the podcast. I kind of take over just a littlest bit just because I like to have some fun. We can do the team of the week. I'm interested in what you think here, Josh. So we'll start off on the fullback line. We have Andrew McGrath of the Essendon Bombers, Adelaide's Josh Worrell, and Cal Wilkie of the St. Kilda Saints will round out our halfback line fullback line. Along the halfback line, we have Nick Blakey of the Sydney Swans, Fremantle's Jordan Clark, and North Melbourne's Colby McKercher will round out the halfback line. On the wings, we have Ethan Reed of the Gold Coast Suns and Harvey Langford of the Melbourne Demons. In the guts, we have Ruck Luke Jackson of the Fremantle Dockers. In the center, we have Jack Ross of the Richmond Tigers, Justin McInerney of the Sydney Swans, and Jason Horn Francis of the Port Adelaide Power. Along the half forward line, the 10 goal man himself, Jeremy Cameron of the Geelong Cats, Hawthorns, Nick Watson, and Paul Curtis of the North Melbourne Kangaroos gets on the halfback line. On the full forward line, we see Jack Higgins of the St. Kilda Saints, Tex Walker of the Adelaide Crows, and Jai Amiss of the Fremantle Dockers round out the starting. On the bench, we have defender Lawson Humphreys of the Geelong Cats, ruck Peter Wright of the Essendon Bombers, midfielder Gold Coast's Christian Petrarca. Our forward is Adelaide's Riley Phil Thorpe, and our utility this year as a fifth because we have five bench players. So my utility anywhere is Essendon's Xavier Dersma. Rounds out our team of the week. Josh, I know a lot of names really quickly. Thoughts on team of the week?
Not a bad team, mate. Not too much to argue there. I mean, I can only really stick up for some of my boys, but Cam Zerha off the back line, mate, I think potentially should be squeezing in there. And
We
a
had a
player that
lot of
I think, oh, sorry, you go.
we had a lot of halfback flankers, a lot of
I know,
halfbacks that
I
kick
know,
goals. This is one of those
I
weeks
know.
where I had Jasper Fletcher didn't make the side.
Yeah, no,
And
100%. I
he
mean,
kicked the
Zerha's only played
goals.
one
So
game in his whole career at halfback, but I can't believe how
he
well
was
he did back there.
fantastic, though.
One
I
of the
will
ones I actually,
fully give him credit. He was fantastic
yeah,
off halfback. The only, like I said, a goal would have the only way it would have been any better. So
yeah, we had 4 score involvements as well, so we actually run
yeah,
through the midfield a lot there. But the one actually player from that game, I would maybe what was it Ross in there for the Tigers? I think
yep.
maybe swap him out for LDU. I don't know if any Tiger deserves to be in there after a 75
Jack
point
kicked
loss,
it.
but
It's my metric of two goals out of the midfield.
Yeah,
It's
yeah. He was definitely the
it
first
is
pick.
purely my metrics that gets him in. But when it
Yeah.
comes to it, it's sometimes when I have some fun discussions with people because you'll get a game where you get a game like a couple of years ago when West Coast was absolutely terrible, and like half my team of the week is because two of their forwards kick 5 goals, two of their midfielders kick 2 goals. So it's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
half the team is one. It is a little bit where my metrics a little bit sometimes can kind of skew a little bit. So that's kind of the reason Jack Ross is there because he kicks 2 goals out of the midfield because he's one of the few people for Richmond that we kicking straight.
Nearly half their score. Yeah, fair enough.
So that's really it. So no, I
LDU, I think, is
100%
getting
get it.
slept on a bit though. I think he's been incredible this
Oh,
year.
I
I think
love
he's taken
him.
a step. The thing I loved last game was he was running backwards and tackling and getting holding the ball calls. But when he broke from the midfield, his delivery into the forward line has got so much better. And
Yep.
I don't think there's a better player in the entire competition at dancing around and becoming free in space and contested
Mhm.
areas. There's nobody like him in the league. And I know other people will throw out all these other names. That's great.
Chad
And
Warner is the only other one, but I think
yep.
he almost needs a little bit of space to be able to, and sometimes I think he runs himself into trouble a little bit.
Mm.
But I'm 100% with you. LDU is one of those guys that if he gets his hand on the football and gets just the inkling of space,
A step, a
he will
spin.
find a
Oh,
way to not only break a tackle, but will slip through and find a way to find a teammate outside the contest. 100% with you. I would take LDU at Sydney in a heartbeat. Legitimately take
oh
him in a
yeah.
heartbeat. Again, I'm loving what he's doing at North. Again, we are absolutely totally kissing each totally
It's
kissing
true.
each other's
It's true.
on this, but it just it shows the respect. It shows the respect there. So 100%
Absolutely.
on that. So we'll jump to the power rankings again. So we are now fully through past 5 games. So we do the power rankings. We will start off at number 5, and it'll make my co-host smile. North Melbourne at 5. At
Bit
4,
low.
the Geelong Cats. At 3, the Sydney Swans. At 2, the Hawthorn Hawks. And at 1, the Fremantle Dockers. Again, the loss to Hawthorn. Hawthorn's lost Fremantle 4 in a row. That's why it goes there. But again, you could rotate any of those three depending on what your metric is. Again, my metric is how many wins in a row first to kind of pawn that. So again, that kind of throws off. But again, I love grinning at myself as I was making my power rankings and going, OMG, North is fifth. And knowing that I have Josh on here. So it was absolutely fantastic. So we cannot end the show without talking tips. We will move to it. We will talk round 7, some absolutely cracking games as we have Anzac round. So, as many people know, this podcast does change its logo for the Anzacs. We have our Anzac logo that we do every year. I will make sure, and on my socials, when this episode comes out, I will change to the Anzac logo because we will always say lest we forget. So let's get to it. Anzac round cracking off. Yours truly gets to get up at the lovely 4:30 in the morning on Thursday. So much fun. Swans, Bulldogs, who do you like?
It's the Swans. It's the Swans. I don't know. We have to discuss it too much, mate. I think the Swans will tear them apart. To be honest.
I this is Swans are getting the Bulldogs at the absolute worst time for the doggies
Yeah, it's true.
with so many
It would have been a great
injuries.
game if the Dogs were in their early season form, though. It could
Oh
have been a
yeah.
top two clash.
Oh yeah. Well, Timmy English, Brody Grundy, two Ruck, who I think both these new rules absolutely help. I would have loved to see this absolute Titan matchup in the Ruck would be so much fun, but unfortunately Timmy English hurt, some of the injuries. I think the Swans a little bit too much. But again, could also be a dangerous dog sign because there's still some good talent there. And the Swans going to Marvel Stadium, the Dogs play Marvel Stadium really well. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. So tipping Sydney, but I'm a little leery about this one because a wounded dogs can bite back. So it'll be interesting to see on that. The Friday night, the Anzac Eve game sees the Richmond Tigers versus Melbourne Demons. Who do you like in this one?
Another easy one, mate. I think the D's. You can't do. No one's tipping against the D's. I mean, $6.05. I'm just looking at here to Richmond in the betting, which is generous to be honest. But the D's will win this one fairly
Yep.
comfortably as well.
Yep. So let's move on to the next one. We will start off the Saturday slate sees the Hawthorn Hawks take on the Gold Coast Suns at Utah Stadium down in Tassie. This is a fun one for me. I'm going to tip the Hawks in this one. They always play Tassie well. and I'm not super confident in the Suns right now. I think some of their confidence has been a little shaken. This is the worst time to get Hawthorn. I like the Hawks in this one.
Yeah, I agree. If it wasn't in Tassie and it was on the Gold Coast, I feel like this game might be a little bit
Yep.
closer, but Hawthorn do play Tassie. My home state, down in Launceston too, where I'm from. My annual game I used to go to, North and Hawthorn down there every year. But no, the Hawks will win this one, I think.
Yep, yep. And then the Anzac game, the perennial one. I cannot wait for this one. Essendon, Collingwood. I think this is closer than some people think. Who do you
It
like in
might
this?
actually be a game now, mate. I was worried about this one just being an absolute slop fest for one of the bigger games on the calendar, but let's see. This is a very interesting game. If the Bombers get done, 30 plus, I think we can maybe go back to the Bombers being what we thought they were going to be. But who knows with the Pies right now, mate? I don't know. This is
Mhm.
actually a very interesting one, isn't it?
I'm I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna tip Collingwood, but
I will too.
it will not shock me if the Bombers pull an upset here. Will not shock me
Imagine.
one single bit because the injury issues that Collingwood is dealing with, Essendon in a good range. It's despite the record, a good vein of form when it comes to how they're playing. This is a recipe for disaster with a Collingwood side that is inconsistent. They don't always play as well, and a young Essendon side that literally they have nothing to worry about. They will lose nothing if they lose this game by 40. They will lose nothing if they lose this game by 5. They will gain so much if they pull an upset. I like the Pies in this one, but tell me this. I will not shock me if Essendon pull off a stunner here. Will not surprise me a bit. Tippin' Pies think the Bombers are a chance in that one. Over to the Adelaide Oval, where we see Port Adelaide take on the Cats. This is a tricky one for me. Cats, some of the injury issues sounds like Brian Myers might be done for the year, but again, this is a Cats team. They're just so damn consistent. I think the Cats win this one. Cats win this one. Port Adelaide give them a test for the first half, maybe three quarters, but I think the class of this Cats side just too much Cats for me.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Cats will end up winning comfortably. If the Power hang around for a little bit, it wouldn't surprise me. But I don't rate the Power overly highly. So yeah, give me the Cats.
Yep, jump out to Optus Stadium for the Saturday night main event as the Dockers host the Blues in this
Oh,
one.
this could be ugly.
I hope it's not, but I could definitely see it, especially with Pitnet going down with a hand injury. Luke Jackson and Mason Cox may have a field day. I like the Dockers in this one.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be so interesting to see if Carlton can hang around for the first 2 or 3 quarters, like they seem to be able to. If it's another lead at 3 quarter time and they lose, oh, gee, all hell will break loose, mate. Surely not. The Dockers should be winning this one comfortably, and this is also to my Dockers skepticism. They need to be putting the power up and sorry the Blues down. Really, they need to go in against the Blues and they need to be like, we're the better team. The game's gonna be over in the third quarter at some point. This will go away to proving me wrong or making me change my narrative to Fremantle. When
Mhm.
teams come over to your home who are struggling, who are down, you need to put the sword to them. North did it against the Tigers. A lot of other teams have done this, through the year. Can you be that team that goes, we're going to crush you today? The Dockers need to crush the Blues if I'm going to take them seriously.
Yep, no, 100% with you on that one. The I have no idea cup for me at Marvel Stadium is the St. Kilda Saints take on the West
Oh,
Coast Eagles.
true.
I'm going to say I have no idea because as soon as, again, the West Coast, what West Coast are we getting? Are we getting atrocious West Coast or are we getting great West Coast? And then the same thing with St. Kilda. No decunning. What are we getting? This is the I have no idea cup. I'm going to tip St. Kilda with very little confidence in this one because, again, West Coast, this is a perfect game for them on the road, can bond together, tipping Saints, but just not confident at all on this tip.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same. This will tell so much about St Kilda. If St Kilda lose this, then I'm not saying a season done. I think they can still come good second half of the year, like we talked about before. But geez, it's going to be a big, big hole to climb out of if St Kilda don't win this game. I'll tip the Saints. I think they should win 3 or 4 goals because I think the Eagles 2 weeks were more of a flash in the pan. Personally, you can't get beaten by 130 and think they can then recreate that a few weeks later. So I'll go the Saints, and I think they should be doing it. But yeah, there's a little bit of hesitation there for me.
Nope, I 100 again. I'm not confident in either team. So this is a
Mm.
fascinating one. This is the GABA Brisbane v Adelaide on this one. Again, two teams last year were in the finals, currently are in the last two spots of the finals places as it goes. Can Brisbane get it done, or can the Crows get a huge scalp on the road? Who do you like in this one?
I'll back the Lions. I think it's probably better for the Lions they're coming off a loss to lock them in and make them focus up a little bit more. The Crows are going to be very good at home, I think, but a traveling team, I wonder how they're going to go this year. I'll take the Lions. I mean, yeah, it is interesting seeing those two teams who were so good last year being in those wild card spots. But look, coming from a North fan, some of us just don't need to do the wild card. Just make the finals, guys. Come on.
This is purely a tip on where this game is being played. Purely on it because I think the team at home has the advantage in this game. I'm tipping Brisbane. If this was at the Adelaide Oval, I would tip the Crows because I just
Mm.
feel like these are two teams that they play very well at home, sometimes can have some sketchiness on the road. So tipping Brisbane in this one purely on the fact that it's at the Gabba, not at the Adelaide Oval. And we end the round up in Canberra. I know you are going to enjoy this, sir. Not only seeing friends, but seeing your beloved North Melbourne Kangaroos at home. So I will let you tip this one. Giants, Roos, who do you like?
I have gone back and forward. So I've got my head says the Giants should probably win at their home,
Mhm.
but on form, I think it has to be North. Oh, I'm so torn. My heart's going to go North because I I think
It's
we've been the
hard to
better
tip
team this
against
season
your
so
side
far.
sometimes. I get it.
Well, I know I've tipped against this for 6 years, mate. Don't you worry about that.
Trust me, you'd be surprised how many Swans fans get mad at me because I'm on my podcast. I will tip against Sydney, and my logic is very simple. If I miss the tip, my team wins. If I get the tip right, I get the tip right. So it's a no lose situation for me. I
Yeah.
found the cheat code there.
I think I need to see the ins and outs for this game, to be honest. I
Agreed.
know most people are tipping Giants, and I understand why. I think they should be the favorites, but that's not on this year's form. And that's not, yeah, I doubt a lot of people have watched a lot of North Melbourne out there. So I'm going to be a homer here. I'm going to tip us, even though I think it's realistic to tip North Melbourne. I don't think this is a bad tip if you want to try and swerve a little bit in your work footy tipping and get one over the everyone else in the office.
Hmm.
But I'll go North by 13 points, even though if I was genuinely putting money down, I'd maybe just back the Giants. But is that just me not fully believing yet when I should? Is this just a new world that I'm not used to yet? It could be.
Hmm.
I think it's winnable. The Giants got some good players back over the last few weeks, so it makes me feel a little bit less positive, but screw it. I'm a North fan. North by 13.
All right, here we go. Ready for this? I'm
Okay.
tipping North Melbourne. I like their form. I think that the extension of the game, I like the way North is playing. I think the way North plays their game is a little bit like what Sydney does with that forward handball. The pressure is high. I think you can make GWS's backline make mistakes. Sydney showed when you make them make mistakes, you can punish them. And sometimes you don't always get the buy-in going backwards. So I like North in this one. I think North plays a similar game to what Sydney did. Sydney exposed the GWS. I like the Roos in this one. I know Canberra has been kind of a fun place for the Giants. They tend to play really well at Canberra, but I'm liking what the Roos are doing. They come in with a lot of confidence. They have a lot of up and about. No Sam Taylor really helps you guys out because it lets you don't have that lockdown defender that can take away a Cooper Trenbath. Paul Curtis is playing incredible. Like I said, Cam Zerha. Have we seen a reemergence of Cam Zerha's career off halfback with Luke Parker? It'd be interesting to see how that goes. The only thing that concerns me when it plays the Giants is that you cannot get sucked to the contest because with that tsunami, you cannot get handballed over the top because you have some good defenders, but not great one-on-one defenders in Pink and Core and some of those. You have to be structurally sound and do not get sucked to the contest because one handball and you're done. So
Mm.
that's going to be the biggest thing. Can Clarkson get the discipline into this defense to not over to not overcommit to the contest and overcommit to the ball so then you're structurally sound behind the ball. If you do that, I think you'll be good. tip in North. I'm going for it. I don't care.
Love it.
And not just because you're on the podcast. I genuinely do like North in this game. I think the Giants, they're inconsistent. They're making mistakes that I don't think they should be making for the group that they are. And when you get a red hot North team that's playing with a lot of confidence, this is a recipe for disaster for GWS. So, but I think the first 10 minutes are going to be huge. Can North jump this Giants team? Because you can break them if you can jump them. And I think, I can't remember, is Tristan back? Is Tristan Zeri back this year?
Jerry's back. Fino Sullivan will be back.
And that's perfect. And that's perfect timing coming into it because they know Kelvin Briggs. Madden's been decent, but I think that'll really help. That'll really help your midfield. And having Tristan back, that would be absolutely fantastic on that one. So that's it, sir. That is all 9 games tipped. That is the entire podcast through. It's always so much fun to sit here and talk with it again. I love talking with fans of clubs that don't always get the pub that the Collingwoods, the Essendons, the Hawthorns, all of that. So I love talking with people that are fans of St. Kilda's, the North, some of the smaller clubs. So Josh, you do some incredible work for your podcast. I will let you have this opportunity for those that are listening to it that may not know that maybe you're North fans that want to find that voice of North Melbourne. Tell them a little bit about how things are going with the podcast and how to get a hold of it.
Yeah, we're pumping out content at the moment. 3 pods a week. We've established a little mailbag show in the middle of the week, which is going to be out on Wednesday morning, which is very exciting. Where I read fan questions out. So if there are any North fans listening and want to get their questions read out in the pod or ask me whatever, and I can answer it in a more public platform, get over to the socials. Further North Pod Instagram, Further North Podcast on Facebook. And you can find the pod literally everywhere. I mean, Apple, Spotify, YouTube are probably the big ones to go to. And yeah, you get 3 podcasts a week of just raw North Melbourne content, and doesn't get much better than that, does it?
Yep, no, absolutely fantastic. Again, always great to connect with it. Like I said, I got Marnie coming up later on in the year, which again, my North Melbourne people that hop on, again, I adore you guys to death because your passion for your club is absolutely fantastic. Absolutely love it. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to do it for this episode of Donnie's Disposals. Again, keep track of it. State League reviews are coming up. We are starting to get into the thick of the state league play. VFL are now 4 weeks in, so we got to talk some VFL. Some waffle. The waffle is getting going. Both the men's and the women's competitions are absolutely on go. And then very soon, my Sandful shows as well. So keep an eye out for more footy. Again, this is the time of the year I lose my mind because there's so much football for me to cover, and I absolutely love it. So that is going to do it for this episode of Donnie's Disposals, and we'll be back with more footy coverage very, very soon.